evening. My name is Publio. I'm gonna sing a couple of songs to prepare our environment, to prepare our soul for the Spiritist talk tonight. So welcome to our meeting. First of all, I'm gonna sing a song called Vibrate.
It's time to open up your heart. It is time to love one another. It's time to take part. Vibrate always, loving and serving everyone. Vibrate always, loving and serving everyone. When we give our heart in charity, our lives are transforming into songs. Our dreams become reality, and we join Jesus for eternity. Vibrate always, loving and serving everyone. Vibrate always, loving and serving everyone. When we give our heart in charity, our lives are transforming into songs. Our dreams become reality, and we join Jesus for eternity.
Now I'm gonna sing a song that really calmed me down. If I close my eyes to pray, I heard the sound of the sea far away. If I close my eyes to pray, Jesus cradles me, in his arms I sway. Body harmonizes, how well done lay the hay. Music lifts his spirits in sweet ballet. Nature's love, a constant giveaway. In joy and peace, my heart finds its way. If I close my eyes to pray, Jesus cradles me, in his arms I sway. If I close my eyes to pray, I heard the sound of the sea far away. If I close my eyes to pray, Jesus cradles me, in his arms I sway. Body harmonizes, how well done in the hay. Music lifts his spirits in sweet ballet. Nature's love, a
close my eyes to pray,
Jesus cradles me, in his arms I sway. Now, song to Mother Zephyrina. Source of love that radiates, warming up our cold nights, support and comfort, support and comfort, cascades from down the mountain, calling the children of earth with love in their hearts, with love in their hearts. My soul never loses hope, because your love always teaches me the solution lies in hard work. The solution lies in hard work. Oh, my Mother Zephyrina, harvest of wonderful blessings, make your small son a good Christian, make your small son a good Christian. Source of love that radiates, warming up our cold nights, support and comfort, support and comfort, cascades from down the mountain, calling the children of earth with love in their hearts, with love in their hearts. My soul never loses hope, because your love always teaches me the solution lies in hard work. The solution lies in hard work. Oh, my Mother Zephyrina, harvest of wonderful blessings, make your small son a good Christian, make your small son a good Christian. And now I'm gonna sing a song, Good Old Man. It's about our protector, our mentor, Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. Blue crystal eyes, color of the sky, gray bushy beard, Santa's look alike. Shine on your brothers on earth, suffering, living joy, or in pain. Blue crystal eyes, color of the sky, gray bushy beard, Santa's look alike. Shine on your brothers on earth, suffering, living joy, or in pain. Bezerra de Menezes, in action. Oh, Jesus, here I am, my knees on the floor to say thank you, my Lord, for the lies that come through this door. Your love is the key to change the entire world. Using these chains wisely, we will live in peace and harmony. Now I understand, helping others is helping myself. Your words now are so crystal clear. Your teachings have no frontiers. To see how this transformation, we just have to put love in action. Now I understand, helping others is helping myself. Your words now are so crystal clear. Your teachings have no frontiers. To see all these transformations, we just have to put love in action.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spirit Talk. We thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Before we start, we would like to share a couple of announcements. We ask you to turn off your phone notifications and find a quiet place to stay during this time if possible. Our meeting will have a 30 minutes presentation and followed by questions and answers. Then, after the presentation, we will have a spiritual treatment with passes and magnetized water. So, we invite you to set aside a container with your water to be magnetized. Our meeting is being retransmitted today by Continental Conference Americas through their Facebook and also every Saturday at 8 p.m. By Kardec Radio through their Facebook and YouTube. For those who want to learn more about Spiritism, Get to Know to Spiritism is a free and online course that happens every Saturday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. New class is started on September 6th, but the next one is going to be on the September 20th. And everyone is invited to join us and find the registration link in our chat. Do you know that we offer virtual live gospel at home? The Gospel at Home is an effective support for you and your family's spiritual harmony. We will motivate and guide you in establishing and maintaining the Gospel at Home study meetings. By posting the chat, you can request it. Please let us know. You are welcome to include your or someone else's names on the list of positive vibration for incarnate or discarnate. The person you indicate will be assisted by the good spirits to provide healing energy and strengthen goodwill. Please find the link in our chat. The topic of today's special meeting will be the multiple phases of suicidal, which is part of the suicide prevention campaign during Yellow September. Life is worth living, and will be facilitated by our sister Ana Oliveira from Alabama, US. Everyone is welcome to write comments and questions in the chat, and they will be addressed at the end of the talk. Now, we would like to invite our tonight's speaker, who will also do our opening prayer. Welcome, Anna.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, great. Another September, huh?
Another September. Yeah, and let's speak about life, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay, my friend and my sister. I will see you soon. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Bye.
So, bye. So, everyone, welcome. We're so thankful you are here. Let's start our talk by doing our initial prayer. So, let's all close our eyes, breathe, relaxing, but is still full aware of where we are in the spaces that we are right now as we are together here in this Spiritist talk. Let's keep breathing and filling our hearts with gratitude to God for our lives, for all life forms around us, for all the life that God has created and that He sustains every moment. Let's be thankful for that and ask our friend, our Master, the Christ, that He may support us in the times of trials, in the times of doubt, of desperation, that His light might shine as a lighthouse showing us the way, that His grace, His peace, and His love may fill us in any moment where we might lose hope or doubt the importance of this existence. May God bless each and every one of us, incarnates and discarnates, and may Jesus be with all of us all the time. So be it. All right, my friend. So I'm gonna try to share my slides. If there we go. Let me just one more thing. And I think now we are ready to talk about this. So September is usually the time where we talk a lot about suicide prevention, right? So, like Marceli said, we're here to talk about life and the value of life and how we all can help ourselves and others to honor this life and really understand the message that suicide is not the solution, right? So today I want us to reflect in terms of suicide in its all multiple faces. It is a problem that affects a lot of people, and as any problem that usually is big, it is complex, right? So I just want to talk to us a little bit, and so that we can see um, all the complexity, or some points that makes this that makes suicide a complex issue. So, starting with the statistics, and also making the point that these numbers are very hard to know for sure, right? So, all these numbers that we talk about that are already scary enough, those numbers are probably just the tip of the iceberg, right? These numbers, if you think about all the steps that have to happen, so that when a suicide happens, that a health organization, maybe a health department or a national department, can have the notification of that death and can keep the can keep monitoring those numbers and reporting those numbers. There are so many steps. So, things might be missed during those steps or not be validated during those steps. Another thing we also know is that sometimes there are other things that confound, if it is a death, even because of stigma, people might not want to report that as a suicide, right? So, but if we think about that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to talk about the multiple forms of suicide too. These are statistics are just for the traditional, idea that we have of suicide. Um, it's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's a lot, right? It's a lot of lives. 700,000 people die each year due to suicide, and that accounts for more, an estimation of 1 in every 100 deaths recorded. So if we think about all possible causes of death, and to think that, once, if we record 100 deaths, suicide will be one of these 100. So it just to show how important this, statistics is, right? So we usually talk about suicide as a pandemic, right? As an epidemic, as even a silent epidemic, because we don't talk enough about it, and all the myths and all the stigma associated with it, we already know from science that it doesn't help. So we really need to talk about it, to talk about the multiple faces, talk about the who is at risk, how can we help, right? But in terms of, before we actually can help, we need to understand the problem a little bit better. So this is my humble quest for tonight, with your permission and with your company. So if we think about risk factors, right? So we talk about all these numbers, what we usually hear, these statistics that every 40 seconds somebody die of suicide in the world. That is a lot, right? So um, one of the groups that actually suicide has been growing, it's in young people, right? If we look at university students, that is also a risk group, especially athletes at the university too, right? And why is all of that? It's it's really hard, I mean, living is not easy, but it's worth it, right? We're not saying that it's a walk in the park, and some of us have more challenges than others. But, when we are young, we're still absorbing all the external ideas. We're still trying to um, know who we are, right? And establish ourselves. So we are much more um, uh, prone to the message that come from outside. And usually in university, in these academic settings where the competition, right, it's really it's really upfront. Isn't like not ever, we are not there just to learn, but sometimes to compete for the best jobs, for the highest grades, right? And it can really be overwhelming. It can really be, a source of a lot of stress, right? What put, these young people at a higher risk for suicide? The elderly is also another risk group um, because of the isolation. So we'll talk a few times during this time together about the problem of isolation and the lack of hope and how that impacts, suicide. So, if a lot of us, and especially as we get older, mine it's very interesting because when we are young mothers and fathers, we are so overwhelmed with taking care of the family, of how much work it takes to take care of the young ones, taking the kids everywhere they need to go, all the attention they need and everything. And then once we get older and our kids are actually now adults and they have their own lives, then we kind of miss, right, that noisy, that busy kind of life. And so it's really important to maintain, right, social ties and not isolate ourselves, and still and not feel lonely, right? um Another group, healthcare professionals, right? Those people who care for others and might not have time to care for themselves, right? Professions with high intensity, or with a big responsibility, or they're very stressful, and where a lot of emotions, right, these like life and death decisions, a lot of responsibility, can also feel overwhelming. Another group is the veterans, right? So people who went to war, and only them and God knows, and maybe their companions, the things that they have seen, that they have experienced. And understandably, once they come back to civil life, it might have a lot of difficulty adapting again, and to that, or even dealing with all those experience that they have, right? And if you couple that with not a lot of professional help, right, that can be really taxing on the emotional health, on the mental health, and it can be a big problem that can feel really overwhelming, right? Minorities too. If we think about the pressure and the extra work that people have to do, there are minorities that are not well accepted, that suffer stigma, that they might suffer violence, like just sometimes just verbal prejudice, or physical violence too, and even institutional kind of violence, in the way that it might be very, it just takes so much to be able to accomplish tasks that maybe for other groups it might be a little bit easier, to get a job, and a job that can pay for, that a decent living for your things that you have, that you need for taking care of your families. Sometimes it just feels like it's a lot. So we can also see how that can be can lead people, right, to really that feeling of hopelessness, of trying to give up, and just really exhaustion, right? But we also, these are like risk groups, but the same way that the elderly, we have people who die of suicide at older age, we also have children. So the way that we see healthcare professionals, but there are other people too, the way that we see veterans, but we also have civilians also, that die of suicide, sometimes minorities, but sometimes the no minorities too. So basically all of us are at risk. So that's why it's important to take care of ourselves and to take care of each other, right? I think if you stop to think, any one of us can think of at least one person that we know that was famous, that was rich, and died of suicide, right? So from the outside, or for society, those people seemed happy, accomplished, successful, rich. They reached maybe the top of their professional, and they are famous. So, but it's still, they had internal conflicts, right? That even though they had all of that, they still, couldn't carry on, right? They really thought that, extinguishing their corporeal life was an option, right? They had so much pain that they really felt overwhelmed. So that's to see that we even talk about some groups in terms of statistics, and we can even identify some of the things or the stressors that can make that group a risk group for suicide. But all of us, any one of us, can be are at risk. So we need to try to prevent, right? And in terms of showing, like, or not showing, but really discussing, or open to discussion, some different phases of suicide, or how the complexity of the problem. I'm going to talk about some social problems now there I consider more local, but just more local because they usually are dictated by some kind of laws and some kind of characteristics of a culture, of a place. And then I'll talk about some other things that I think are more global, because they probably affect a lot of different societies. So one of them, it's access to weapons, right? So, and this is something that, for example, in terms of law, in the country that I live, that is the US, is very easy to have a weapon. There's not any restrictions like probably in another country. So that makes the success rate, in the way that people who try suicide, a lot of them, they might accomplish that, because that is a lethal way. There's no time to help and to impede that. So there are things that, so if we know that people are struggling, and having access to weapons, if that is their method, then we know that that is a problem, right? Because that would increase the risk that a suicide can happen. And we know from research too that if people choose one method, if we take that method, if they don't have access to that method, whatever that method is, then they would not try another method, right? So that's why it's important, if you know how the person is thinking, what they are thinking about the method, if we can take that away from them, just for at least from that time, right, until they can not be in crisis anymore, that helps, that saves lives. Access to mental health care, right? So if you're already overwhelmed but you don't have access to mental health, or there's a lot of stigma associated with that, there are a lot of fears and a lot of roadblocks to access, then it's going to be harder for you to get professional help to really alleviate some of these things that you are feeling, and to help you feel less overwhelmed, right? And also prejudice against minorities, like I was talking about. So if you live in whatever society and whatever minority you are, but you are constantly under pressure, you might think, it's not worth living, and you might feel so tired that you might want to give up. So in terms of social problems, we can think about poverty. And I mentioned this as a social, like a word problem, um, is because sometimes even if the country is more developed, there might be pockets, right, of the society where that, I mean, you might see some of these problems that are more worldwide now. Even if you are not experiencing them yourself, they might come to very close to you through your mobile devices, through your television, right, to the ways that you have to connect with people. So poverty, if it's you don't have even the basic, it might give you this overwhelming feeling. If you are experience war or violence, like during the pandemic, right, especially when it's a new virus or microbe, like with COVID, it can bring a lot of people a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, because they might be fearful that they are going to get something, and there's no cure yet or something like that. Abandonment, loneliness, right, or social isolation. We are social beings, right? We need to be with others, we need to be in the world, right? It's just so easy to not feel overwhelmed if you're by yourself, because nobody's challenging, nobody's pushing your buttons, right? Nobody's really pressuring you or giving you a hard time. That's why in isolation is much easier to be patient and to not feel all the challenges of living society. But we know that we are social beings, we also need this connection, is healthy for us. And it can be, of course, unhealthy, but if it is non-violent or non-oppressing, then it's a good experience for us. um, Materialism, right? So if we live in a society where the outside is always telling you you have to have this kind of house, this kind of car, this kind of job, and it's getting harder and harder to get all of those things. But if the idea is that if you don't have those things, you failed, even when you don't need those things, you don't need that house, you need a house that it's safe, that is clean, that has give you some comfort. But you don't need probably a house with 3 floors or something, right? But sometimes in very materialistic societies, the idea from the outside is that you have to have more, have, get. But we know as spiritists that what we need to do is to be. So we need to really be concentrating in who we are. That is the only thing that is going to carry on from this life to the next with us. It's who we are, the things that we do, our thoughts. But I don't know of anybody who could carry, their house or their cars or anything to the afterlife with them, and then we lose ourselves in this quest of things that we don't need, really, right? So in truth, we do not need, but we lose all of our best energies, our best times. We miss opportunity to connect with others, to really enjoy life, because we're seeking something that is not what we need. And we are associating our value in those things, and that's not where our value as spirits really lies, right? So we can see how if you're not reaching all of that, you feel this disconnect, and you might think, so what am I doing? You might feel like you're failing, and you just feel that it's just too much. And for right now, now in this section of our talk, I'm just going to give a few alerts. And the first one is the association of drug and alcohol use with suicide. It's not a good association, right? If you think that what is your cognitive function, right? Your ability to make choices if you are under the influence of drugs and alcohol, that capacity, that ability to make good choices is diminished, right? So you might take, make choices and do things that are lethal, that are fatal, and they are not the solution, like suicide. And this quote that I had of this president of the Brazilian Association of Psychiatrists, at the time that this was published, talking about the consumption of alcohol and psychoactive substances during childhood and adolescence, that they are directly related to suicide cases among young people. But really, if you're already in crisis, if you're already suffering, you already have all that pain, trying to mask all of that with drugs and alcohol, it's going to make you not really have the cognitive function, the stability, right? To really make good choices. So that is an alert. Another alert that I wanted to talk, and really like the multiple phases, we having other forms of suicide. So besides the traditional suicide, I would like to mention a little bit about assisted suicide and indirect suicide. Maybe indirect suicide is something really that spiritists talk about, but let's go one by one. So in terms of assisted suicide, where you have the help of a healthcare provider to assist you in ending your life. So it is legalized in some countries, although in places like, for example, in Europe, it's because of the close. They are the countries are so close geographically, right? That is easy. If you live here, it doesn't take much for you to travel to another country where it might be legal. Numbers have been growing. For example, in Canada, they really, I think it was last year when I showed some numbers. So if you want, you can probably see, that presentation from last year. But I just Google it and I could find those numbers. So we can see that the numbers have been growing. Once you legalize, then more people actually start to looking for it, and sometimes can be authorized even before the person has symptoms. Just in the case of a disease that is considered terminal and that we don't have any treatments for it. But as a spiritist, we know that's why we value life so much, because we know that every moment that we have on this earth, on this birth, is so important, right? Any extra minute or one day or two can actually make a difference in the next chapter of our lives. That is our next incarnation, our next birth, right? Our life is it's kind of a book, and each birth or incarnation is like a chapter. And we know that usually, the preface, or what it's actually telling us, what is going to happen in the next chapter, has some link with what happened at the end of that, chapter, the previous chapter. So that's why any moment more can make us see things different, feel things different, and change our behaviors. So that has implications for the next chapter. Any time that we have, every minute of our existence is a chance that we have to be better than we were 1 minute before or 5 minutes before. Not better than our husband or wife or our partners or our neighbors or our, classmates. No, better than we were, a few minutes before. So we need to see what idea we're giving, for people as a society, as we approve, this legislation, right? And as a spiritist also, what is the idea, what is the consequences also in the spiritual life. And then if we think about indirect suicide, that's why any of us are at risk, because indirect suicide has to do with those self-destructive behaviors that are not lethal. The things that we do to ourselves that we know are not good, and they are probably diminishing our health and our time on this earth, right? They are taking probably some time of our lives, but we do it anyway, right? So that's what Spiritism calls indirect suicide, right? So if I eat too much, if I don't exercise, or even if I eat things that I know that I have a health condition that I'm not supposed to do, if you abuse, drugs and alcohol, if you you don't sleep enough, it's any things that we do or that we omit doing. I know I probably should be going to the doctor. I have health insurances. We are not saying that you are not doing because you don't have the means to. You have the means to. You know a little bit about nutrition. You have read maybe some books, or somebody told you, or you have access to the information, but you just elect to not do, not to do eat well, not to sleep well, and then you have some excesses and some other things you omit to take care of yourself. And that it's something that is very well described in this book, Our Home, from the Spirit under Lewis. It's the first book on the collections of book of life in the spiritual life from, the Spirit under Lewis. And actually he discarnate from consequences of, having a sexual life that was not very healthy, having sex with many women outside his marriage, and drinking a lot, even though he was a doctor, he was a clinician. And then when he got in the spiritual world, the other spirits there were calling him suicide, and he was like, no, not me. I went to the doctor and I had surgery. And then later, when he was rescued, then they explained to him that all those things that he did to his body, right, willingly, there were all that self-destructive behavior. Actually, it's what, made his organs so weak, and that he ended up having to have surgery. But even the surgery, he couldn't, get better with that. And then, his body was so weak that he discarnates. So that's what we call like an indirect, it's due to our self-destructive behaviors. And who from used, maybe alcohol or even food, right? Or savory foods and things like that, or, did not take care of ourselves, the way we should. So to think about the complexity and the multiple forms and the multiple phases of suicide, we can think, if we add the numbers of traditional suicide plus assisted suicide plus indirect suicide, we can see how all of this, it is much, bigger problem. And this other alert is really wanting to make sure first the topic is about mediumship and mental health. And just to be real clear, mediumship is not a mental disorder, right, but a natural faculty. I like to think, maybe in the wrong way, but that's an image or an idea that helps me to understand mediumship. It's almost like it's a natural faculty, because it's almost like related to the anatomy of your perispirit, and that covers your spirit, right? So you have that type of anatomy that it's better, that is more conducive for you to be in connection with the spiritual world, right? So even some people confuse mediumistic experiences in the wrong way, of course, wrongly, with symptoms of psychiatric illness. That is not it. But I just want to alert, our medians out there, because, all of us are medians at certain levels. Some of us are more ostensive ones, that we have that faculty, that's natural faculty, at a higher degree than others. But we need to know ourselves, right? And to train as medians, so that if we're feeling a lot of sadness and hopelessness, we need to inquire, is this coming from me, or am I connecting? Am I absorbing this? Am I receiving this message, from the spiritual world? And as anybody needs to take care of their mental health, the median's mental health also needs attention, right? It needs professional attention if needed too. It needs the help from all of us in the Spiritist center or around them, right? Because any one of us can have some spiritual problems that can, really affect our mediumship, and we might need help. And, that should be our duty as fraternal brothers and sisters, to help ourselves and to help each other, in that way. Now, trying to talk a little bit more about starting to move a little bit the tone of our talk, and we talk about the numbers, the risk groups. We talk about the different types, right? That, the problems when, there is the risk of suicide plus drugs and alcohol, the care that we need to have as medians to really be watching and knowing ourselves, that might be a factor, if not treated, if it not, addressed, right? Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about things that we can do to help, things that we know that work from science, from the Spiritist literature. So, like, moving a little bit more like on the prevention side of things now. So what is the association between spirituality and health, religiosity and health? So this association, it is a positive association. A lot of the work that has been done shows that evidence that people with well-developed spirituality tend to get sick less, have healthier lifestyles, habits, and when they do get sick, they develop less depression and they recover more quickly, right? So these documented in numerous scientific studies, for many decades already. So these studies, first of all, they talk about spirituality or religiosity. So it's not a religion specific. And actually, these studies, as far as I know, they don't say religion A is better than religion B. It's just, having that religiosity or that spirituality, that practice is what it is beneficial. And see here that it's not a magic bullet, it's not a miracle. It's not saying here that the evidence is that people with well-developed spirituality do not get sick, do not have unhealthier lifestyle habits, do not get sick again. That's not it. It's saying that they tend to get sick less, have healthier lifestyle habits, and when they get sick, they develop less depression and they recover more quickly, right? So it's helping with that resilience. It's stimulating that faith and that hope. So that is why it's protective. It protects our health, and also our mental health is part of our health, right? Our health includes mental, physical health, social health, spiritual health, all of that. And why is that, right? It is because for many people, spirituality is a source of comfort, well-being, security, uh, meaning, ideal, and strength, right? So that is when there is a positive association with spirituality. But do have people that have negative, experiences with spirituality and religions? Yes. And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences in different religions or spiritual practices about suicide. So one of the questions that sometimes people always ask is, because there are some um, religions where dying by suicide, it's considered really like a sin, and something that people don't talk about, and that way they don't pray for those people anymore. But if the question is, can we pray for someone who has died by suicide? And the answer, yes, 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 we can. We should pray for them, right? And I got this quote from this book, Reformer, where it says, all suicides without exemption regret the mistake made and are in agreement in the information that only prayer relieves the sufferings in which they find themselves and which seemed eternal to them. In another book, the Memoirs of Suicide, actually we see that in the colony, in the spiritual colony, the spirits who die of suicide by suicide, they actually, in the recovery process, they receive those prayers and they have a positive impact for them. So that's what Spiritism believes. Do we have a spiritual assistance to spirits who die by suicide, right? So in our case of spiritists, we know suicide is not a solution, but there's nothing that we can do. We know that the mercy of God, it is forever and it is abundant and has no bounds. So it doesn't matter what we do to ourselves, to others, what people tell us that they think we are, whatever our mind mistakenly says that we are unworth it, or it doesn't matter. No, none of those things can separate us from the love and from the mercy of God, right? So of course there are resources, there is rescue, there is opportunity to restart, to start over, to get better, to get that relief from that pain, and to try again, right? And if we can have an idea of what kind of spiritual assistance it is reserved for a spirit who die by suicide, well, we just need to think about Mother Mary, right? So in this quote, it says that sweet Mother of Jesus is the sublime spirit who takes mercy on suicides and extends her hand to them, helping the sick spirits who have voluntarily left the earth. So if we can think of a more maternal assistance or more loving and peaceful assistance, I don't know that you can think of somebody better than the mother of Jesus herself. And she's the one who organizes this spiritual assistance in the spiritual world for a specific this group. So I'm sure it is full of love and everything. So, we mistakes everybody makes, but we need to keep in mind that the mercy of God, and God does not forsake anybody, and Jesus does not either, right? So there is assistance. In these Memoirs of a Suicide is a book by Ivone Pereira, and actually it is in English already. And this Camilo is one of the spirits who died of suicide, and he narrates the service of this group that is called the Legion of the Servants of Mary. So he describes them as soldiers wearing white robes, resembling Hindus, who arrive on a train and they begin to call the names of those who could be rescued. In the wagons, kind ladies welcome them, and the spirits who die of suicide, they are then transported to a huge colony full of life, where there is Maria de Nazaré, Mary of Nazareth's hospital. And there, the employees take the spirits who die from suicide to the specific care that they need. And the book goes on to narrate the entire process of suicide recovery. So that is the thing, right? We should not despair about our loved ones, because we should trust that Jesus does not forsake anybody. But if there was one thing that I wanted you all to come, come out of this talk, that we have our time together with one idea in your mind, I would like for it to be that suicide is not the solution, right? So life goes on. We are immortal spirits, right? So then death is nothing but an illusion. The death of the physical body does not extinguish the spirit, because we're immortal spirits. So the spirit life itself goes on, right? And most of our brothers and sisters who die of suicide, they really did not want to die. They just wanted the pain to go away. But that's why suicide is not the solution, because if they want to extinguish themselves, thinking that that way that the pain would go away, well, we are immortal spirits, life goes on. And if they wanted the pain to go away, then the pain might not go away, right? You still wake up in the spiritual realm as you were here, right? There's no just sudden transformation from, earth to the spiritual life. All our characteristics are is still with us, the good ones, the bad, and the ugly ones. All that we still are there in the spiritual realm. So it is not the solution, right? So that's why we need to talk about that, and we need to help each other and make sure that we can prevent, because it is preventable. But again, like, Jesus himself, and it's not like me, I am saying that Jesus is not gonna forsake anybody, but he said himself in the gospel that of the sheep that my father entrusted to me, not one will be lost, right? So he's our shepherd, right? That one that is always watchful, and that can go for that one stray little sheep, while he has 99. He can take care of those 99 and still have special attention for that one, right? So if we start talking about prevention, how can we prevent that? And that is, probably the few slides that I have more, but I really want us to end this with knowing the problem, the multiple faces of it, but also uh, how can we help? So I think one of the important things we can do is take care of ourselves and to others around us, be our brother's keepers, right? Like the saying says. So let us be fraternal and alert, right? Be vigilant. Um, we can be friendly with people, but also be alert. And if somebody is usually very extrovert and likes to do jokes and things like that, and then the person is changing, is isolated, it's not really behaving the way that I know that that person usually is, then why not ask that person if they need help, right? If they're thinking about suicide, and what do they need to help, like, do they need you to go with them to a doctor? Do they need you to just listen to them, right? And I know that in our society, sometimes we don't want to be labeled as people who meddle in people's business, right? I don't want to be the person who's always in the middle of everybody's business. So I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to pay attention. I'm not even going to be alert, because I'm I'm meddling in their lives. But how much is it really trying to not meddle from not caring, right? We cannot go from one extreme to the other. So, we really need to, and I would personally, and everybody needs to make those decisions for themselves, but I would rather lose a friend because they were upset with me because they had a different behavior, and in my mind, in my gut, my intuitions really said that there's something that is not right with them, and I didn't check with them, I didn't ask them, and then they got upset. I would prefer that situation, to lose a friend that way, than that if they die of suicide. But I had that one opportunity to be really the resource, for God's mercy, right? I could be co-creator with God for an opportunity of relief for that person. And I actually was thinking so many other things that I lost my opportunity, right? So we need to cultivate faith and hope. And if we need to cultivate faith and hope anytime, it's probably every generation says that their current time is the time that is more difficult. But for right now, it's not so easy to cultivate faith and hope in face of war, violence, injustice, poverty, abandonment, loneliness, and all of those things, right? But that is our duty, because that is going to help us, our mental health and the mental health of the people around us, and that it is suicide prevention, right? The power of prayer, right? We As we pray, we are really connecting with God, and having that time to really silence all this noise and all this distraction, and really be in contact with creation, with the creator, and the higher aspirations and that he has for us, and the caring expectations he has of us, not the material expectations that society has for us. um, we can take a suicide prevention training. Sometimes in some of our places in our countries, actually, after some training and some practice, people actually can work in a call center, where people can, call. Let's be volunteers, volunteers at the, Spiritist Center, like if you are volunteering with food drive or with feeding people, there's one less stress for that family, right? So we're helping their mental health, we're doing suicide prevention, right? If we know how to talk to people and what to do, I can tell you that the training that I had to answer the phone at a call center, I could use this with some friends and with some students, like, so at work, at my private life, I got to use that with people close to me and help them, right? And help, hopefully make a good impact on them. So suicide prevention can happen in every unofficial place. It does not only happen when somebody calls, the calling center, and somebody else answers the other side. Sometimes you might be sitting waiting for the bus, or you might be talking about something else, and this talk might come on. So if you have the training, right, you'll be able to help. Offer social support, right? That is so important. Remember, this is our moral charity that we can practice. We might not be able to feed the whole family, but we can check on some of our family members. We have some time, right? Or to call someone that we know, a neighbor that is very isolated. So it's if you are able to, right, to do some of those things, that doesn't take any money necessarily, but takes of your heart, right, and your time. Let us not isolate ourselves, right? Sometimes it seems like, oh my gosh, I had it, right? So I'm just gonna isolate ourselves, but that's not good for us, and that's really not good for our mental health. So let's practice activities that bring us joy, right? So for me, gardening has been really helpful to my mental health, just seeing patiently the little seed grows and having that reward later of collecting a vegetable. Sometimes even, if it's a pepper and I can't really eat peppers, but I can give to somebody. I can do something for my family members. I can find a recipe and I can tell people this came from my garden. So I took care of this from seed all the way to now, and I made this for you if you like it. So that brings me joy to take care. It helps me. It's a little bit of physical activity too, but for others might be reading and being in a book club. It can be, dancing, singing, it can be, I don't know, hiking, running, anything that is helpful, like crocheting, or, and especially for the young people out there, sometimes you trying so hard to fit in, and I think it's just you didn't find your social group yet, right? So you didn't find your group yet, but your group, your tribe, they are out there. We just need to find it, so try to go to places where people are more open, right? And then start building your social groups from there. But there will be a group somewhere, right, that has the same interests as you and that you can feel connected, right? Let's take care of our mental health, and that is really key. Sometimes we really need to watch what we eat, but we do not watch what we're feeding our mind, right? What kind of videos am I watching, on my WhatsApp? What kind of messages I'm sharing? What kind of news I'm listening to on repeat? Because in most of these traditional channels is like, if you just watch every 3 hours is the same news repeating, it almost gives you the idea that that's the only thing that is happening in the whole world, or that thing is happening again and again and again, when it's not. So if that is too toxic for you, take a little break. Try to find a better way to be informed and to know what's going on. But really help preserve all these information, these images, and these ideas that we're feeding our mind. And just as a little plug, and because we're talking about volunteering, helping, being proactive in the suicide prevention activities. Our group has developed this site, suicidenever.com. And if you go there, it's not meant for people who are in crisis, because it's not a call center, but in the first click you do on the top, and it has many languages too. There is a little message for people if they are, thinking of suicide, and has a passes, but also has the numbers, in different countries that people can call, and we really encourage people to seek help. So this is not really for people in crisis, but we thought that if people are searching, maybe they will come to this, and we didn't want them to leave empty-handed. But this is more for volunteers, for anybody who wants to help with the suicide prevention campaign. And one of the things that I really like in this site, from some activities that I think is very simple and very effective, is that we have some comforting messages in many different languages that we can share with our friends in our social media. We never know who is going to be, accessing that. I have no idea to know how many people are going to be listening to this. And my hope is that they will be comforted, but I can't control that. What I can control is being here and giving the best that I can, and putting in helping, with the help of my friends, putting this out there. Right. But who is going to access? I don't have control. But if we populate the social media with, more positive things, with more hopeful, right, then we can impact people, in a positive way. So if you have some time and some interest, just check that website. And this is my last slide. So remember, suicide is not the solution. It is a complex issue. It has many faces, and it takes all of us to prevent it, but it is preventable, even though it has so many huge numbers now. But the key will be to take care of our mind, our body, and spirit. And then once we take care of our own mind, body, and spirit, if we're doing well, and if we can, then we can help others take care of their minds, body, and spirits too. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. And I'm sorry, we went a little bit over, the time, but it's such an important thing, and hopefully we can think about those things not only September, but it seems like September is when we talk more about suicide prevention.
Thank you so much, my friend. This was a very, very important talk that you brought to us. It's a subject that we really need to talk, right?
Hmm.
In order to help people, to bring like information, to bring some light. And yeah, thank you so much. Um, we don't have time for questions now. I'm sorry,
No
but I believe
problem.
you covered everything that was like needed to be done, right? So thank you so much once again. It was very, very helpful and useful too.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. And we thank everyone for your participation in this chat. Now we will move to the preparation for tonight's spiritual treatment. And PAS is the transfusion of spiritual energy with the goal of assisting with our physical, emotional, and mental balance. PAS help us to restore a state of harmony and peace by replacing negative energy with health and positive energy. In order to receive the best benefits from passes, please follow the audio instruction or remain in prayer. You may close your eyes to help with mentalization. During the pass, the water you set aside will also absorb the spiritual energy that you and your family can benefit from. We will now make prayer in preparation for the pass, which will be our closing prayer as well. So I invite everyone to close your eyes if you wish and feel comfortable. Let's elevate our thought and think in God and think all the information that our sister Anna brought to us tonight. And let's thank for the opportunity to be here and to listen and see like so many things that we can do to help. And may God and the good spirits help all of us to fight for the life, to always think that um, we need to have a faith in God, that everything happens for a reason and life is worth living. So let's ask the good spirits the protection, especially for those people who are suffering and who are with the suicidal thoughts. May all of them can be reached and they can be comforted to change their minds, making they cannot give up of the life, and they can realize that God is good, God is just, and He loves us no matter what. Thank you, God, for everything you have done to us. We ask you and the good Spirit to protect every one of us, our family and friends, and everyone in this planet. May we can finish this treatment, this spiritual care, much better than when we started. We ask you to bless our week, our house, our neighbors, and all the people who are struggling in this moment. Once again, we thank you for everything and we ask you to be with us today and always. So be it.
Let's get ready for the pass and water fluidification. Please get a container with clean water to be fluidified. Brothers and sisters, it does not matter where you are, what type of hardships you are going through. Jesus is always ready to come and help us. Place yourself in a comfortable position which can make it easy for you to reach concentration and receptiveness. Breathe slowly and easily. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Fill up your lungs with air and let it out very slowly. Let tranquility and peace energies penetrate your lungs and move throughout your body. Your soul in harmony with your body feels easy and in peace. Let's imagine Jesus' passage. A clear day, the sun's golden rays illuminate the happy passage in Capernaum. A lot of white houses, multicolored vines, and hopping birds fill the landscape with optimism. The news about cures attracted the crowd in need. Suddenly, Jesus appears slim and handsome. His tunic was hanging down to his feet. At sunset, all those with sick people hit by several illnesses would bring them, and as he placed his hands over each one, he would heal them. This is what Luke the evangelist says. Let's imagine Jesus approaching you. He holds his friendly hands over our head. Notice that from his generous hands, a waterfall with clear and pure water originated from his love come to bathe you. It flows on your head, goes down your shoulders, bathe all your being, and brings you peace, serenity, and balance. They remove all impurities and pacify you. Feel the water bathing you, cleaning. Breathe. Now, imagine Jesus as a sun before you. His light, his warmth surrounds you. Feel the healing energy that comes from Jesus towards you. He hears your prayers. Trust him. His love is endless and it follows you and protects you. It provides you with everything you need. Have faith. Absorb the healing energy from Jesus. His light surrounds you. Feel the energy going through all your body. Feel stronger and in peace. Lord Jesus, our divine friend, reach out your generous hands, Lord, and change this water into medicine for our physical and spiritual illnesses. Protect us, Jesus, with your peace. Spread those vibrations of love throughout my home, Lord. May peace, health, and tranquility reign here. We are very grateful to you, Jesus. Stay with us today and forever. Thank God. Please remember to use the fluidified water.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We will be back next Tuesday here on Spiritism Canada and Continental Conference Americas at 8:30 p.m. and next Saturday on Kardec Radio at 8 p.m. And please don't forget to follow Spiritism Canada on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and the Spirit group Path of the Light on Facebook as well. Have a great night until next week.
Come on, my friend, come to the light. Here with all our heart and soul, let's follow Jesus Christ. Let us preach the peace, let us preach the love. And this world already wonderful will be much more. Get up, look at the sky, in the earth where the flowers bloom with sunshine. Let's hold our hands and be together on this road. Then we take peace and love and spread it to the world.